Soon you will be confronted by a wild animal. As you all know, the hunting instinct is triggered by weakness. If you show fear, the animal will sense it. If you try to escape, the animal will hunt you down. But if you remain perfectly still, without moving a muscle, the animal might not notice you, and you can hide in the herd, safe in the knowledge that someone else will be the prey.
The wealthy elite are having a dinner party, and a live show is performed for them. An animalistic man enters and slowly walks around the room, playfully antagonizing the guests. Nobody wants to make direct eye contact with him for very long, yet they are all cautiously mesmerized by what socially unconventional thing he may do next. He gradually becomes more and more aggressive, to the point of chasing a man out of the party who refused to listen to the instructions and keep quiet. You feel the atmosphere in the room shift. Now, everybody just puts their heads down and sits as still as possible, out of fear of being chosen next. This animal is but one person, and yet he commands the entire room to silence. This is until an unfortunate couple's phone rings. But he just intimidates and pushes them away until they leave the room as well. Everybody is still frozen in shock. They all want this madness to end, but nobody will challenge this man's authority. Even when he starts publicly groping a woman and hurting her, cries for help fall on deaf, complacent ears. It takes him dragging her across the floor by her hair and attempting to rape her for someone to finally step in and help. And once one person does, others can find the courage to join them. By now, I'm sure it's clear that this scene is a metaphor for how passive we can be to another person's suffering. We are always waiting for someone else to do the right thing first.
Well, in any major city, minding your own business is science. The first thing they teach women in rape prevention is never cry for help. Always yell fire. Nobody answers to help. You holler fire, they come running.
That's fucked up.
The bystanders in action reflects society's reluctance to address uncomfortable truths or their ability to confront injustice until it becomes unavoidable. This scene is from a film called The Square, which offers several brilliant examinations of what it really takes for people to act upon their morals and just how complacent we can be to another's suffering. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that we might not be as virtuous as we claim to be. I think you can also interpret this dinner scene as showing no matter how wealthy or powerful you are in society, this doesn't always overpower the primal survival needs that humans have. Billions of dollars in the bank and political influence mean nothing when you're confronted face to face with a brute that wants to kill you. The rich have been able to hack life in our current society, but if civilization crumbled, they would be at the bottom of the food chain. If survival depended solely on what you could practically bring to the table, the manual laborers that now only have a fraction of the world's wealth would now be the ones who decided who received food and shelter. If you want to see this situation explored even further, this same director delves into these ideas in Triangle of Sadness. We all like to tell ourselves now, after the fact, that if we lived in Germany in the 1940s, we wouldn't become culpable to the attempted genocide that would occur. And of course, we would be the ones risking our lives and families by hiding Jews and helping them escape. Statistically, this would not be the case, and you would likely be just as complacent as everyone else. There's a scene involving a man with Tourettes that I think provides a thought dilemma somewhat similar to the trolley problem. This man is clapping, yelling, and creating a disruptive environment for the audience and for the speaker.
Landscape.
The material is like
Julian, the speaker, keeps losing his train of thought, and like everyone, is puzzled by this man's outbursts. After a while, the audience is starting to get fed up with him and really just hoping that his wife will take him away so that they can enjoy the discussion. Julian says that the man's disturbances are fine because he has Tourette's and continues trying to have the Q&A about his artwork. So the question is, what is the most ethical and beneficial outcome to this dilemma? This one person is ruining everybody's potential joy and wisdom that they could be getting from this interaction with Julian. Since the man is contributing nothing but disruption, is it unreasonable to ask him to leave? And maybe the event could say that they'll provide him with video of the interview so that he can enjoy it at a later time. Alternatively, how reasonable is it to ask the audience to just get over this annoyance and try and focus on what they can? If he stays, the experience for all parties is lessened. If instead, this was a heckler making loud noises on purpose and antagonizing the speaker, we wouldn't have a problem with security tossing him out. But since the man has Tourette's and has no control over his actions, we feel obligated to let him stay out of empathy for his situation. But the resulting disturbance is nevertheless the same. However, it would also be very uncomfortable to publicly call the man out and directly ask him to leave. After he left, the atmosphere would just feel different, and it might be difficult to carry on the interview exactly as before. Just like the traditional trolley problem, no outcome is perfect. There's also modifications that you can make to this situation to provoke further thought, such as, what if instead of a man with Tourette's, it was a black man in a crowd of racists, and his presence was making everybody uneasy? Would it still be okay to ask him to leave so that the majority of people could feel more comfortable? In the Tourette's case, they may at least feel bad about asking him to leave. But in this variation, their motivations are out of contempt of his skin color and far less understandable. This thought problem tangent aside, similar to the dinner party's message, this scene could be a metaphor for how we may try to ignore suffering that is happening right next to us because it's just a hindrance to us enjoying our own lives. I also think that you can view Julian's reaction as a pessimistic reflection of ourselves. Maybe he's only being tolerant of the man's outbursts because it's in a public setting and he doesn't want his reputation to be tarnished. So he's putting up a front and pretending to be more virtuous than he really is. You can clearly see that he is still disrupted and annoyed by the man's outbursts, despite telling him that he could stay. And it isn't even him who persuades the crowd to be tolerant.
Var lite toleranta. Han lider av en neuropsykiatrisk sjukdom. Hans vilja styr inte honom. Så försök att vara lite toleranta.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we'll only do small acts of kindness to try and make ourselves feel better, and so that we can say we're contributing something to a cause, like sharing a hashtag on Twitter or reposting something on social media, even though we don't actually take further action after the fact, and then move on soon after.
My thoughts and prayers. Do you know what that's worth? Fucking nothing.
This pessimistic view identifies the vanity that many people possess, but also at the same time, synonymous with the theme that this movie illustrates. Just because our individual small actions may seem minuscule, we may still be morally obligated to act. Additionally, if enough people join in, it can cause real change. In this scene, a man named Christian accidentally pushes a young boy down a flight of stairs and refuses to help him. First, let me explain the buildup of events and Christian's mindset that led to this moment. In one of the first scenes of the film, you see Christian walking amongst a crowded street. You hear a woman cry out for help. A couple people look around for a moment and then continue on. She keeps screaming and then manically runs near Christian and is begging for help from an attacker. The only reason he stays to help her is because another passerby calls him out and tells him to stay and help. The dozens of other people walking around are of no benefit to the situation. There is also an unfortunate twist that the screaming woman actually steals Christian's wallet, phone, and cufflinks. So in the rare instance where someone does step forward to help, they are taken advantage of and punished for it. This interaction leads to Christian using GPS to track his stolen phone to an apartment complex. He then goes door to door, handing out a threat to whoever stole his phone, telling them he knows who they are and wants his stuff back. He's bluffing and doesn't know what flat actually has his stuff, but he's hoping the thieves will return the goods without knowing that. This all sets in motion the confrontation with the young boy. The kid finds out where Christian lives and tells him how his parents found that letter and he's now in trouble because they think he's a thief. He demands that Christian talk to them and make it right. This seems like a fairly reasonable request, and it wouldn't take much time or effort from Christian to clear things up, but instead he refuses. Why is this? Can he really not be bothered to help this kid? He spends more time arguing with the boy and telling him to go away than it would actually take to help him. Upset, the boy then runs around Christian's building, yelling and knocking on his neighbors' doors. He's just trying to cause chaos at Christian's home, the same way he has. Christian tries to stop him and then accidentally pushes him down the stairwell. Us as the audience never actually see what the boy's injuries look like once he's fallen, so the film is making you look away and ignore the suffering the same way Christian does, the same way we all do in our everyday life. Christian soon goes back into his apartment, ignoring the off-screen pleas for help.
Hello? Hello, Erhan.
He'll do anything, including digging through the garbage in the rain to find the kid's parents' phone number, then actually walk down the stairs to help him. Instead, he decides the best way of dealing with this situation is by hopping on his phone and creating a video to send to the boy's parents. He can't confront reality by seeing the boy, but he still wants to make himself feel like he's doing something. He basically just makes excuses for why he can't help more. He shifts subjects and focuses on class distinction between the two families, saying that there are socio-economic issues that need to be addressed. He explains that he knows one of the 291 people who own more than 50% of the world's wealth, and says that they could fix all their problems in one day. For those of us that are living paycheck to paycheck, this is a common response. Why should we sacrifice the tiny amount of money we have when the filthy rich could donate a fraction of their wealth and help more than we ever could? While this is true and their extreme greed needs to be made apparent, it's also true that we could still be doing something. In a way, me making this video is similar to Christian making his. Because even after watching this movie and having already done research into effective altruism, I know that I'm not going to do any massive charitable deeds anytime soon. This uncomfortable truth is where the movie holds you, and it challenges you to hold yourself accountable. So let's finally address the title of this film and what exactly the square is. Christian explains that this is a place where anyone can go stand and ask for help, where passerbys are now obligated to help you, not just ignore you. A place where you can ask for a meal and someone will help you. Or you could say, my father just died and I have no one to talk to. Could you spare me 30 minutes of your time? Earlier in the film, when it shows the square being constructed outside, it seems like a useful and purposeful social experiment. But later on, when you see it in the museum as an art piece, it twists the concept into mere virtue signaling and is too contrived and ingenuine to be effective. It's now only being used as an intellectual exercise, not a useful outlet to be put into practice. This film serves as a meditation for us to examine how ethical we think we are versus how ethical we actually behave.
If it was me dying on the sidewalk, you'd walk right over me. I pass you every day and you don't notice me. Everybody just yells and screams at each other. Nobody's civil anymore. Nobody thinks what it's like to be the other guy.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you want to support the channel even further, consider joining my Patreon. You can participate in monthly Q&As and get insight into what I'm working on next. And a huge thanks to those of you who are already over there. Thanks for watching my videos.